Week 4 of the NFL season has officially concluded, and you know what that means. We are back with our Week 4 NFL Roundup for this week. So without further ado, no introduction needed. Let's get straight into it. And unfortunately, it's not going to be as positive as last week's. Of course, the Miami Dolphins losing 48-20 to the Buffalo Bills. You know, like last week, I'm going to go ahead and just take this one off because obviously as a Dolphins fan, I have no other choice. And obviously I've lost my joy. Coming off of that result last week, I mean, it was almost pure ecstasy. It was so good. It was so good to be a Dolphins fan. But obviously, if you know anything about the Dolphins franchise, when they bring you up, they're going to bring you back down. That is exactly what they've done this week. I'm not going to lie here. I kind of expected it. Obviously, I picked the Dolphins. Obviously, I was always going to back the team. But if we were going to lose a game, this was the game we were going to lose in Buffalo. Let's not act like Buffalo is a bad team. They are a very, very good football team. Josh Allen, we know how good he is. We know how good he is against the Dolphins specifically. I don't know what it is about playing us, but when Josh Allen plays us, he plays like prime Joe Montana, prime Tom Brady. He plays like a man possessed. I don't know what it is. As soon as he sees the aqua, he says, you know what, it's time to cook. That's what Josh Allen did. Yet again, I mean, fully 4 incompletions. 21 for 25, 320, and then 4 touchdowns, of course. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Jesus Christ.
That was a phenomenal game by him. I'm not going to sit up here and act like this was a good performance on any facet of, our imagination here, because it wasn't. I mean, the offense wasn't as explosive as we've seen, obviously, through the first 3 weeks. And obviously, the main thing that I wanted to talk about on here was our defense, because, my God, our defense looks absolutely pathetic. I expected Vic Fangio to come in and transform this defense, because obviously last season our defense wasn't that good either, but I expected Vic Fangio. He's one of the best defensive minds the NFL has ever seen. If anyone is going to make us have a solid defense, it's going to be him. And through 4 weeks, our defense has not been impressive. It has not been anything special. It has not been anything to write home about. The things that I expected to see with the Vic Fangio-led defense, I haven't seen. Through 4 weeks, Bradley Chubb looks like the worst trade I've ever seen in my entire life. Last season, I mean, Chris Greer, you've done some great moves. I got to give you credit. But that's a terrible one, because, my God, after this 4 weeks, after this game specifically, Bradley Chubb looks like a ghost out there. He might as well not even be there. Our linebackers are absolutely terrible. And I don't know whose idea it was to not have X guarding Stephon Diggs the entire game. But, I mean, he absolutely cooked us. 3 touchdowns, 120. I mean, Jesus. Stephon Diggs, he looked like Jerry Rice out there.
Rice, Randy Moss, who do you want to name here,
like that's how good he looked. He absolutely torched us. And then X after the game was saying, I don't know why I wasn't guarding him. Well, shit, I don't know either. I do not know either, because
there's something that gets asked way too many. Why aren't the best corners of the team
guarding
the best receiver?
Corners guarding the best receivers? If anyone, look, I know we don't have Jalen Ramsey yet. He's going to come later on.
This is a game you really needed Jalen Ramsey for.
We still have X. X is still a good corner. If anyone on our team is going to guard Stephon Diggs, it's going to be him. And look, Stephon is still going to get his. He's such a good player that he's still going to get his. That's what the greats do. But you have to put your best on their best, and you have to let them duke it out. If he still catches 3 TDs on Xavier Howard, I'll hold my hands up and I say, you know what? A great player did his thing. But I come away from this game thinking, what if, X was guarding him the whole time? Would it have been any different? Maybe he forces a play here and there. Look, I still think Stephon Diggs would have done what Stephon Diggs did, but maybe not to the same extent. But obviously that's woulda, shoulda, coulda. I do not understand exactly why, Vic Fangio didn't opt to do that, because what he did obviously didn't work at all. It was a disaster. Josh Allen was basically saying that's barbecue chicken. You know what I mean? Like I'm throwing it to Stephon Diggs, like every single play. So, if this team is going to be what I think they want to be and what I expect this team to be able to accomplish this season, they have to fix this. This defense is not good enough to compete for a championship. This is the reality. This team is not Super Bowl ready if this is their defense. I expected as the season progresses that this defense will continue to get better. Vic Fangio is going to implement his system. They're going to, understand it better. It's going to get better. But after seeing this game where you got torched by Josh Allen and the Bills, a team that you're going to face again, you have to beat this type of team if you actually want to win a Super Bowl. You want to make a Super Bowl. You want to make the AFC Championship game. You have to be able to beat them. And giving up 48 points, you're never going to beat anybody. I mean, you give up 48 points to any team, you're not winning that game. I mean, it's just a reality. You can't score 70 every week. And my main thing is, look, I think you can come away from this game talking about our offense. Well, it wasn't as good as it's been. And obviously, you give a lot of credit to what the Bills did on defense, their game plan. They obviously found something that seems to work. But obviously, I'm not as much worried about our offense as our defense, of course, because our offense is still going to get theirs. Our offense is still going to play better than what they did. I know Tyreek Hill didn't have a great game. Look, one thing I can say I'm impressed about is the way we've been rushing the football. I have to give a lot of credit to Devon Achane still, because 2 touchdowns against the Bills. What a game for him. He seems like he is
a buck one.
He seems like he's going to be the running back one going forward. And, you see the tape and you just say, this kid could be something really, really good. He could be a really good player. And to get him when we did in the draft, you feel good about that. So there are some positives you take away, but not that many. I'm not worried about our offense going forward, but I come away from this game really, really worried about our defense. But if there's a silver lining here, if we were going to lose a game, it was going to be this one. The Miami Dolphins, as much hype as we got after dropping 70 on the Broncos and beating the Chargers in week 1, we were never going to go undefeated. No NFL team is ever going to go undefeated. It's just not going to happen. We're not the 72 Dolphins.
You sound a bit like Dak after.
No, but it's the reality. No NFL team is ever going to go undefeated. It's not going to happen. The 49ers this season aren't going to do it. The Eagles aren't going to do it this season. They're the only 2 undefeated teams left. It's never going to happen. It's not happening. So you're going to lose at some point. And away at Buffalo, that's always a tough game. Division rival. Josh Allen always plays good against us. If we were going to lose a game, that was going to be the game. So this is not the end of the world. The sky is not falling. The Dolphins are not frauds. We're not a terrible team. This was just a wake-up call. It's a reality check. And I think now, the coaching staff needs to, take a step back and say, we have to fix our things. Maybe we have to make a trade before the trade deadline to improve this defense more. And obviously the offense needs to go back to the drawing board and try to fix up some of the things that the Bills exposed, how to stop this Dolphins offense a little bit. And the NFL, it's a copycat league. So every other team is looking and they say, what did the Bills do to stop this explosive offense? We're going to copy that. Now the Dolphins have to adjust and find a way to beat that. And I think if any coach can do it, it's going to be Mike McDaniel on the offensive side of the ball. But the reality is we were never going to go undefeated. And I look at our schedule for the next 2 weeks, play the New York Giants and then the Carolina Panthers. We have a very, very good chance to be going into Eagles at Sunday Night Football at 5-1. That's going to be a game where, look, at some point during the season, we have to win a game against a legit contender to prove that we are that good. So whether that's the Eagles, whether that's the Chiefs, we have to beat somebody legit, somebody that we know and respect in this league. Beating the Giants and the Panthers is not going to make us, the Dolphins are contenders.
Dolphins are back.
If we're 5-1, we play the Eagles going into week 7, Sunday Night Football, primetime game. We're momentum is riding high. We're going to be in a good spot. My point is here, we have a very good chance to be going into the Eagles game 5-1. It's not the end of the world. We lost to the Bills. They're a good team. They're going to be around come playoff time. When they come to Miami later on in the season, we just have to beat them. That's the reality. We just have to beat them. And they're 3-1. We're 3-1. We still have a good chance to win this division. The Bills are not going to be undefeated. They're not going to be perfect. Josh Allen is still going to have some bad games here and there. We just have to win our games, take care of what we can take care of, and that's it. That's all we have to do. But this is not the end of the world. There are a lot of red flags and issues after this game. Don't get me wrong. But the sky is not falling, and we are not frauds, like I've seen some people in the national media say. Oh well, you know what? Dolphins are frauds. Tua, he's trash. No, that's not true. This Dolphins team is still very, very good, and if they make some moves, this team can still compete. To be the very best team in the league. I firmly believe that. It's just after this game, some things were exposed.
Yeah, and I think you worded it well by saying it was a reality check because, look, I don't doubt that a lot of people didn't pick the Dolphins going into it. How could you not? I mean, this is a team that just dropped a 70 ball on somebody. I mean, who does that? But, when you start to look back at it a bit, hindsight is always 2020. I mean, they were kind of playing. You play the Chargers, you play the Broncos, and the Broncos are arguably one of the worst teams in football right now. I mean, it's hard not to say, as soon as they would go up against a legit team, they would struggle a little bit, and that's what happened. And it was almost like an opposite effect that the Dolphins were on a high, and the Bills. I don't know if it was just me, but the Bills are kind of falling a little bit under the radar after the week 1. I kind of stopped keeping an eye on them. It's just like, oh, you lost to the Jets. This team, their window's closed. They're completely done. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us jumped the gun a little bit too quick because look, the Bills are still a really good team. And like they go and they beat Washington. And who else did they play? I remember they come out basically. They were 2-1 going into this game. They're still a very good team. Obviously, they have Josh Allen, they have Diggs, they have a great defense. The Bills have always had a very good defense.
Von Miller coming back too.
Yeah, and look, this game was even without Vaughn because I think one thing you didn't mention was the Dolphins' offensive line could not protect Tua at
Oh
all.
God, yeah, I didn't even mention that.
Tua was getting absolutely slaughtered, and and I know a lot of Dolphins fans had to be holding their breath because look, anytime Tua goes down, you always get little bad flashes of last season because that was the problem. They couldn't protect Tua, and this was without Von Miller, and God just imagine what the Bills would do if they had Vaughn. So this Bills team is still very, very good. I think we jumped the gun a little bit to say the window was closed and that they never had a window, but they're still a very good team that's in the mix.
Mhm.
And this was definitely a game the Dolphins would have loved to have Jalen Ramsey in. But I think a lot of it was more questioning of where was Tyreek Hill? Where was Jalen Waddle? I mean, I forgot they played, honestly. This is just we gave so much credit to Tyreek Hill, that he wants to get a 2K season and all this, and then you drop 50. You get 58 yards with 3 receptions. That can't happen. If you're a player of Tyreek's stature, everybody wants to jump on and give Tyreek all his flowers and his credit. That this guy, like we've said, he's the scariest guy to play. But then you have games like this, and where the real challenge, your first real challenge of the season, and then you kind of ghost against the Bills. Definitely a team that you can't ghost against because they're a direct rival. They're the team that is the measuring stick for the Dolphins. A lot of Dolphins fans said going into this game, if we're able to compete and beat the Bills, this will show us where we're really at.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, for sure.
It kind of ended up showing it. And I like you said, I don't know what's with Josh Allen that he loves playing the Dolphins. I mean, you look at these stats, it's like you sort of ask, why isn't this Josh Allen every week? Why, if this Josh Allen played every week, this guy would run away with MVP. He'd be unanimous MVP because, my God, 4 touchdowns with 21 for 25 completion rate.
He had the same amount of touchdowns as incompletions.
Like, fucking Christ. And one was a rushing touchdown. I mean, he did everything. This guy looks like Shaquille O'Neal when he plays the Dolphins. I just don't get it. It's unbelievable. And I mean, Stephon Diggs, I mean, he just absolutely ate the Dolphins secondary alive. I mean, even what, like you said, even if they had Jalen Ramsey, I mean, this is Stephon Diggs of last season that cooked Jalen Ramsey when he was on the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have not made a difference, but even still, you'd like to have one of the best corners of the game. But overall, the Dolphins, like you said, I agree. I don't think it's a complete, they shouldn't be on fraud alert or anything. It's like, this is the first legit team they've run up against. And look, they just found out there's things that still have to be worked on. This defense is not where it needs to be. And like I said, Vic Fangio is still it's going to be very hard to completely transform a defense. Because like you said, Vic Fangio, you're expecting him to transform defense. That's going to take time. Because there's a lot of things the defense is just not used to doing. I mean, they're not used to being good. I mean, quite literally. I mean, they're not used to having a guy like Vic Fangio, be the orchestrator and run all of it perfectly. So it's going to take time for them to get going. I think the Eagles game is going to be very interesting if they can go into that game, like you said, 5-1, come back and win 2 straight and go into the Eagles with that confidence. That's going to be another very a game that Dolphins fans are going to have to look at closely. But overall, like as far as Tua goes, he didn't play horrible, but he wasn't not his best game. But against this defense, he couldn't really get protected. He was getting pressured a lot.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's a good point that you make because obviously you want to put a lot of the blame on Tua, immediately because he's the quarterback. But then you look back on it, you watch the tape, and I mean, Jesus, he's getting barely any time to throw.
He was getting rocked, absolutely rocked, and. Like I said, with a team without arguably their best defensive player in Von Miller, who's I think his first day of practice back was today. He might I don't think he's going to play in London, was the reports are saying, but he's going to be back. But by the time the Dolphins play the Bills again, there's a high likely chance that he will be there. So it's going to be a lot of scheming is going to have to take place. This is where you rely and you lean on your coaching staff to scheme up a plan to deal with this stuff. But that's stuff that comes with time, and I think the Dolphins will be able to figure out and be in the mix because we're not, like you said. I don't think a lot of the fans are wanting the Dolphins to have a top 3 defense in the league. They just have to be great in certain circumstances and like find little points to where when the defense needs to stop, you get a stop. It's similar to kind of like the Bengals. The Bengals made the Super Bowl, but they never had a top 5 defense. Their defense was able to step up in points in the game where it mattered the most. And that's all you really want. And that comes mostly down to coaching and key players. And when you have a key player like Jalen Ramsey, who's going to come back, a guy that can make a difference, like difference makers on the defensive end of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, we thought Bradley Chubb would be a difference maker. He looks
I
like a
know
non-difference maker.
you thought that last season, and looked like a good move. And look, you can't knock him for trying. At least, I mean, you had to make some type of move, but you
But it's just
can't make them all.
it's one of those ones where we had the chance to get Roquan Smith, who would have transformed us in the linebacker position, a position where I look right now and our linebackers are terrible, man. Like we can't tackle anything.
Yeah.
Like if I look at the big gap on this defense, because a Vic Fangio-led defense, you have to have elite linebackers, and we don't have anything close to an elite linebacker. I mean, Jerome Baker's not an elite linebacker. It's just a reality. He's got to go after the season. Like it's time to go, blood. You know what I mean? Like we could have had Roquan Smith instead of him. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. It is what it is. We thought Bradley Chubb could be, the guy we saw in Denver. Doesn't quite seem, that way. I saw some of his moves. I mean, this guy has no bag. This guy has literally no bag. I mean,
he's got no bag. He forgot it in Denver.
But it's not the end of the world. I don't want to see people calling the Dolphins frauds completely. I think this might end up being a season where we say the Dolphins, they're good enough to beat on most teams, but they might not be good enough to beat the elite teams. They're just kind of in that in-between window. But I think any given Sunday, this Dolphins team, because of that explosive offense, you can't count them out. And if they can just figure out the defense, man, they don't have to be an elite defense. They don't have to be top 5.
Just got to step up in those moments.
They just got to be able to not give up 48 points. I mean, they just don't give up 48 points. Give your offense a chance. Because even if this offense was firing on all cylinders, they're not scoring 48 points in the Bills. The Bills defense is too good to give up 48 points. You got to hold teams to under 30. If you hold any team under 30, I think you give this offense a chance. But as soon as you get 35, 40, that's a tough ask for any offense, even an elite one like this. So that's got to be for me the goal. Keep teams under 30. You got away with one with the Chargers. They got 34. Even that it's good enough because this team can put up 36. They can put up high numbers. But 48, it's just not happening.
And especially the offensive line. I mean, just now thinking about going into that Eagles game. I mean, I'm just thinking of that big ass Georgia kid. Like
Jalen
Jalen Carter. That team can get out a quarterback, and that's gonna be very dangerous. I mean, for Tua, because obviously no one wants their quarterback to get that much punishment, and that's something where I'm more worried about that than anything. I think the main takeaway of this game should be more. Not about can the offense be more consistent, because we know how good this offense is. It's a great offense. And even more on the defense is more the offensive line, because that's just how how any good team really works. I mean, if you can't protect your quarterback, you're not going to go nowhere. Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do. And if he's getting hit like that, you're risking him possibly getting hurt. And now you're in a bigger fucking predicament now. But obviously that's something they're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, obviously, it's one thing with Tua, he did all the jujitsu, he's learning all of this stuff, but any hit can, I mean, it can be for any player, but a guy like Tua who has the injury history that he does, any hit could be the one that ultimately, derails this entire team season. That's how much of this team's success kind of weighs on his shoulders, and one injury could change all of that. So obviously, when you're playing a team like Buffalo, when you're playing a team like the Eagles, who have a very good defensive line, who can get at your relatively poor offensive line, that's always going to be a cause for concern. So obviously, I agree going forward. Now our best offensive lineman got injured in that big game as well. So it's not quite where you want to be at. But obviously, the Giants aren't quite the same as the Bills. So next week we should be fine. And obviously, one thing we didn't even talk about in this game, we'll just kind of go over it real quick before we move on to the next game. The Bills obviously losing Tre'Davious White for the rest of the season. They're gaining Von Miller back, but obviously they're losing their best secondary player, obviously a top 5 corner in this league, no doubt about it. That's going to hurt this team going forward. Obviously, that's something you never want to see. The Bills, that's obviously a big hole that they're trying to replace now. Obviously, they're still going to be a good team, but that's something that could hurt them going forward. That's a big storyline, a big talking point that's kind of flying under the radar from this game out for the season.
Yeah, I mean, he knew immediately, which was the most unfortunate part. I mean, it just sucks. Sucks.
I mean, he just pulled up right away. I mean, you just knew. Yeah, it looked like that Aaron Rodgers thing almost.
But
different, but where you just knew.
You see you kind of see it.
You had the pop and all that. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but obviously we'll see next week if the Dolphins can bounce back from this result. Obviously, full credit to the Bills. But moving on to another team sorrow, we've talked about them a lot recently. The Cincinnati Bengals. Let's just be honest here. An embarrassing loss against the Titans. We talked about it last week as if they should be resting Joe Burrow for this game because the Titans are not that good. And they played Joe Burrow, and they get beat by 24. They couldn't even score a touchdown. They couldn't really move the ball. An embarrassing result. Let's just be honest here. So I'll pass it off to you. What is your initial reaction and thoughts to the Bengals losing by 24 to the Titans?
Why is Joe Burrow playing? I just don't get it. Like force, I'm not sure it's either as much as forcing because I think Joe Burrow is just cut from that cloth that he doesn't matter. He wants to play, but you just have to. If you're anybody in the front office that gives a shit about this guy, you have to keep him off because he's not getting any healthier. He looks completely immobile. He looks frail in the pocket, and he look. Joe Burrow does not look confident in the pocket. He's a fucking pocket passer. If he does not look confident in the pocket, you're not going to be a good football team. Like I don't understand why they're trying to they're acting like, oh yeah, we're just gonna play Joe Burrow into health. That doesn't happen. That's not possible, and it's starting to affect everything. I mean, the offense has looked from night and day from last season because last season they started out 2-0, but no one questioned their offense because their offense was always they have too many weapons on offense. You'd be worried about that. But now it's the problem is their offense. They're not able to score. I mean, it's a team. Have they even scored a touchdown in the first half yet? Like I literally don't know. And you have weapons like Jamar Chase. You have these guys. And I mean, it's starting to get frustrating even a little bit for Jamar Chase. I mean, he's saying, I'm always fucking open, and Joe Burrow's not able to get him just because he's not 100% football fit. He's just not. And I mean, for Christ's sake, they couldn't even do nothing with Derrick Henry though. To be honest, Derrick Henry was just basically a little brother this Bengals defense. He used to say, y'all got to get out of my fucking way here. I mean, he just completely dominated them, and the Bengals had no answer. So I mostly leave this game saying, what do you gain from playing Joe Burrow right now when you know that he's nowhere near 100% fit, that he's not healthy, that even who does it take to watch these games to say, Joe Burrow, this isn't going to work right now because we need him to get fit. I don't know if they're just hoping, we'll just play him and then by the bye week that'll be enough. That's not enough because you're going to start running into very elite teams. I mean, this is the Titans, man. I mean, this is not the old school Titans that were bossing Brady around over there with the Patriots. This is a completely different. This is a Titans team that no one expects anything from, but they're able to do this to the Bengals, and that I just don't know. I mean, a lot of questions have been asked, and like, do you hit the panic button, or should the Bengals be panicking now? And it's still early, but you could definitely feel the pressure that something has to happen. Something has to happen, and unless they secretly do some Karate Kid shit to fucking heal Joe Burrow, that's not going to change. So I think the only thing that they can do is just try playing your backup. Hopefully, like I said, this offense is just you have too many weapons for any backup not to make this work. At least for the small time being, you're not playing elite level teams. Just for enough to give Joe Burrow some time to rest up, get more mobile, get a little bit more confident that he can take a hit without completely shattering like glass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, look, I wholeheartedly agree with pretty much everything that you just said. Joe Burrow should not be out there. I said it last week. I think you also said it last week. And we said if you were going to have a point in the season where you rest Joe Burrow for a couple of weeks, try to get him back to at least 80% health, because right now he looks like he's 40, 50% at best. I mean, he looks immobile in the pocket, uncomfortable. He can't play like he wants to play. Obviously, a lot of people are making jokes saying, he got his money and now he's playing
got
bad.
His money, now he's playing bad. Yeah.
But the reality is he is quite literally, it's obvious that he's hurt because Joe Burrow, he is way too good to be playing like this. I mean, you can just see he's not his usual self. I mean, he's basically, look, Joe Burrow, he's a guy where, look, he's not always going to beat you with his legs, but every now and then when, they're a crucial third down, he will get it on his leg. We saw it time and time again, especially, in those playoff runs, last season, the season before when they made the Super Bowl. This season, he's not rushing the ball at all. I mean, he got 1 yard, you know what I mean? He's unable to move. That obviously takes away a huge, facet of his game where he can't move at all. He can't even, move out, throw it on the run. He has to just be in the pocket. And I mean, it just is quite literally, yes, he's very good in the pocket normally, but this is just, he's unable to do the things that he needs to do. And it's just one of those things where you look at the Bengals schedule coming up. They played the Titans this week. Next week, obviously, they play the Cardinals. So I was saying, if you're going to have a point in the season where you rest Joe Burrow for a couple weeks, this is the time. You played the Titans, you played the Cardinals. Those are not that good a team. Then you play the Seahawks. You have a little bit of a window there where you're playing some decent teams, and then you play the Cardinals, who you think are going to be, not that great. That's just your time. You put Joe Burrow on the bench, say, take these 3 weeks off, get to as healthy as you can be, and then let's go and make a playoff push. Hopefully we pick up a game with our backup. Maybe we're going to be sitting at 2 wins or whatever. We can run the table with a healthy Joe Burrow. The Bengals team has done it before. They're capable of doing that. But now, you're getting a lot of pressure. You're sitting at 1-3. I still think next week and the week after that they should be resting Joe Burrow. Because if they play him this week and they somehow lose to the Cardinals, you're sitting 1-4. You play the Seahawks, you're going to be sitting 1-4. The pressure is going to be mounting. And let's just say you pick up a win and you're sitting at 2-4. Then you play the 49ers, the Bills, the Texans, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Jags, the Colts, the Vikings, the Steelers again, the Chiefs, and then the Browns to finish off the season. Those are all relatively hard games. I mean, yes, before the season, you would have thought the Texans would have been an easy game. But the way C.J. Stroud is playing, the Texans look like a decent enough team. Where the way this Bengals team is playing, I think I'd pick the Texans right now. And you're playing teams like the Bills, the Steelers, who have a good defense. You're playing the Browns, who have an elite defense, just like the Steelers do. The Chiefs, we know how good they are. Like, this Bengals team has a very tough schedule. There's no time to rest Joe Burrow in the rest of the schedule. This is when the rest of these games are when the season is getting to crunch time, where you need to be, hitting stride. You need to be picking up wins to even make the playoffs, because the way this Bengals team is playing right now, and with Joe Burrow's health, this team is not making the playoffs. This is this team is quite literally, they might finish last in this division. I mean, they might finish last in this division if Joe Burrow is 50% or less for the rest of the season, because this team is just not good. They can't move the football. They're putting all the pressure on their defense. And like we've talked about, they don't have an elite defense. They cannot be just carried by their defense. They're not quite like the Steelers, where if their quarterback play isn't that great, the defense can pick up the slack. This Bengals team, they are an explosive offense normally, and they just have a subpar defense who gets the job done when they need to make a play.
When they need a play, they tend to make big plays.
But Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon, those are the explosive guys. They score points. They are explosive offense normally. And it looks like the exact opposite. So that's why this Bengals team obviously looks like, or I mean, let's just be honest, this Bengals team right now looks like one of the worst teams. They look like one of the worst teams in the league. And it's just crazy. I know it's crazy to say that, but it's quite literally just comes down to Joe Burrow's health. And like I said, you should have rested him this week against the Titans. You lost anyway. So, I mean, you were going to lose anyway. So you might as well have just rested him. In my opinion, they should rest him for the next 2 weeks, even if you sit at 1-5. If you're 1-5, let's just say you lose the next 2 games, and then you go into that gauntlet schedule where you're playing the Bills, 49ers, whatever, but you have a healthy Joe Burrow, this Bengals team can run the table. They can, come out of that gauntlet schedule and come out of the, potentially have a chance to be a wild card team. I firmly believe the Bengals team with a healthy Joe Burrow, they can run the table, pick up wins, against some tough teams and make the playoffs. But they can only do that with the healthy Joe Burrow. And the only chance they have to get him healthy is now.
It's by not playing. Yeah, by sitting
him out. He has to not play. And then, you got to there comes a point in the season where, right now, we know this Bengals team I don't think they'll beat the Cardinals with Joe Burrow the way he's playing right now. I don't think they'll beat the Seahawks. So you're going to be 1-5 anyway. So rest them and then, get him back in after a couple weeks, see where he's at. He's probably going to be 75%, maybe 80%. That Joe Burrow can potentially, send you, and maybe you finish the season 10-7. You finish the season 10-7, you run it, you get on a hot streak. You can be in the wild card, and this Bengals team in a wild card position that we know what they can do. They could still make a run. And all they gotta do is make it.
Yeah, you just gotta get to the dance. But another thing is, especially against the Titans, Joe Burrow was getting demolished. I mean, this guy was still getting got it because his offensive line is still horrible.
Yeah, it's never been good.
It's never been good. This is the same thing. It's like, there's 3 guarantees in life. Death, taxes, and Joe Burrow's offensive line being shit. So that's just a mixture of horrible things, because not even like, at least you're protecting your quarterback. He's not getting hit. You have a hurt Joe Burrow that's still being sacked because your offensive line can't fucking protect him. So,
and when you have a bad offensive line, you need to be able to escape the pocket and throw on the run, and he can't do that.
He can't do that. So it's like quite literally going after almost like a wounded animal. It's like you can't get out of the pocket. You can't rush right now because, like you said, Joe Burrow is someone who's like he'll fool you to think that he can't really run. He's not that fast, but when he gets moving, he's kind of quick. He can get a first down.
He'll get you a crucial first down.
He'll get you a first. Yeah, he's known to do that every now and then. But right now, he's not doing that because of his circumstances. So, for the best of both parties, this is you just sit him down. Joe, you got to sit down because you're not going to get any healthier playing these games. and we're not going to get any better with you out there playing. So I don't see a reason for them to keep playing him.
And also from the front office perspective, you have at a certain point you have to say we got to protect our investment. We just made this guy the highest paid player in the league. We got to protect our investment and say, you know what, we are forcing you to sit down for these next couple of games. We can't have you risk an even worse injury.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you pay you get that type of money. You're an investment. You know, they invested all that money into you at that point. At a certain point, you got to say, you know what, I'm making the final call here. I don't care how bad you want to play. You're gonna sit your ass on the bench.
Got to sit down, yeah. Come have a seat over
because
here,
when you're a competitive guy, you know, anyone in the NFL, but especially a guy like Joe Burrow, he wants to be out there. He wants to be fighting for the team. He thinks that even him at 50%,
even him at 50% will be enough.
that's going to be enough to get them over the line and get wins. But you know, when you're in that mode, you know, it's hard to see it from, you know, a different perspective. That's when somebody like the coach, like the front office, like the owner, they got to say,
they got to protect them from themselves.
Protect them from themselves, because a lot of these athletes, it's like that, and they end up making it worse. And then the last thing you want is this injury to linger. You know, maybe it even carries on in the next season. You just don't want that. It's one of those things you just got to just take the rest, do what you got to do, heal up, and then, you know, come back. That's just what has to happen here. The season is not a wash yet. So, you know, I understand he feels like the pressure's on, you know, but it's not. Like, you can still sit out a couple weeks. Trust your backup. You pay your backup for a reason.
You pay your backup. He's getting paid money right now.
Right now, he's collecting a paycheck. The reason he gets that paycheck is literally for situations like this. It's his time to step up and look. All you gotta do is get one win. Can you beat the Cardinals? Can you beat the damn Cardinals? I think he can.
Yeah, you get paid some money. I mean, you should. You should.
You know, so that is, you know, quite literally where I'm at with the Bengals right now. It's a bit weird because I say all this, we say all this, but I still think Joe Burrow's playing next week.
Yeah, no, like we're saying this, but quite literally, we know Joe Burrow's going to play. So.
And then we're going to be coming back on here next week.
But they're having the same conversation.
The same thing. And to be honest, we're probably going to say it for the whole rest of the season.
And they're going to fucking miss the playoffs. But,
you know, if there's a silver lining for any Bengals fans, if you do miss the playoffs, you get a solid draft pick, you go again next season, you know? If you're bad enough, you get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Marvin Harrison, bro. Fucking hell, how many more? No, they don't need Marvin Harrison Jr. They need the offensive line. Look, they get Marvin Harrison Jr., trade that guy for a whole fucking new offensive line. That's all you need, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Got them all the weapons in the world.
Yeah. Okay. But moving on from, you know, two relatively disappointing, you know, performances this weekend to a team
finally
that
something positive.
All they do is impress. All they do is win, it seems like. The San Francisco 49ers beating the Cardinals, which obviously isn't a surprise to anybody, but obviously the San Francisco 49ers improving to 4-0, another dominant, impressive performance from the entire team. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to you. I think we're both in agreement on how good this team is. You know, we'll talk about our power rankings at the end of the video here, but just what are your thoughts on this Niners team and what they did?
Just another it's what we expect from the 49ers at this point. I mean, to be fair, to play almost a bit of devil's advocate, they haven't played any other true contenders yet. But we just know this isn't like the Cowboys or anything like that. Funny enough, they play the Cowboys next week. This isn't a team that you fall for. Oh my God, they beat all these teams and then they play someone good and they shit the bed. This is a team that's it's coached better than anybody. I mean, they have arguably the best coach in the league, and they have some of the most well-rounded team in the league. I mean, their offense is about as good as it gets. Their defense is almost, I think, arguably better than their offense. I mean, this is a team that there's no weakness. I mean, every time we come on and we have these weekly roundups, we talk about how the 49ers just have no weakness. I mean, their only weakness is fucking some of the players can't stay healthy. I mean, that's it. I mean, look, I go into this game and I look at it and I notice Debo didn't even play. As a, you know, like they just have that ability to where one of their best offensive weapons, I mean, one of their most versatile weapons, can just not play, and they look like they don't skip a beat. And I mean, Brock Purdy having another just a quiet, fucking tremendous game, going for 283, 1 touchdown, 20 for 21. I mean, this is what you want from him. I mean, this is what he does. He does this so casually because he's not a flashy player. This is a guy that just makes the plays you need to do to win football games. And another guy, obviously, who's getting a lot that we might touch upon in just a second here, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you keep saying this. You say this a lot. Every time I mention Christian McCaffrey to you off camera, you're like, how did the league let him? How did the league let him go to the 49ers? Who let this happen? Because this guy is just a terror. You give the 49ers one of the most the most versatile back in the league, and they're just like, oh. we're all surprised that this is happening now, because I get a lot of people question that if he could stay healthy, but my God, when he's well, he is hell. This guy is fucking hell on earth when he's healthy. And not to only mention Brent Ayuk going for a $148. I mean, this guy is just must see. I mean, he's untouchable. And all that to mention those two guys and George Kittle. I had to scroll a little bit down. George Kittle got 9 yards. I mean, they have a guy of George Kittle's stature, and he's not even really making that much of an impact because, quite literally, they don't really need him to. But if they did, he would. I mean, if there's a game that comes to where those other guys aren't firing on normal, they just go to George Kittle, the tight end. And the good thing about George, Mr. Reliable, and the good thing about George Kittle, he does a lot of other things that tight ends do. I mean, he blocks. I mean, there's a lot of stuff he does for this team that don't really show up on the stat sheet. And of a player of his stature, he always draws the defense. I mean, a defensive coordinator always has to go into every game against the 49ers and look at, they have George Kittle. No matter what, we have to throw some type of attention to him. And that leaves, obviously, the field more open for players like an Ayuk, even guys like Christian McCaffrey, who was able to get 71 yards receiving.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes everything work. And to finally have that guy that looks like is going to be the reliable quarterback in Brock Purdy, they don't have to worry about him making stupid decisions and making bad turnovers. He doesn't really, that's not what Brock Purdy does. I mean, he's a guy, like I said, who makes the right plays. He doesn't really risk it for the biscuit very much. I mean, he can make a couple good throws. He has a great arm, but not, like a spectacular arm. He just does enough. He does everything right. And that's just what is the 49ers right now. They do whatever it takes to win, and they do it just enough to win. I mean, it's great to watch. I mean, I'm telling people now, like, if this 49ers team stay healthy, I would not be surprised if they don't lose a game. I mean, I would not be completely shocked, but a lot of that comes down, to who stays healthy.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm gonna cool the brakes here a little bit on undefeated talk. Obviously, way too early for that. Yeah. I did just say earlier that no team is ever gonna go undefeated. I don't even think this Niners team is good enough to go undefeated. You're gonna slip up at some point. But I do understand the premise of what you're saying here, because this Niners team is just unbelievable. I mean, like you said, I say it all the time. How did the league let them get Christian McCaffrey? Who let this happen? Did Roger Goodell should have paused the trade and said, no, we're not letting this happen. This team's going to be too good. They should have done like the David Stern and the Chris Paul deal to the Lakers. Like, we're not letting this happen. Like, no, we're canceling it. Veto it. It's not going to be good enough for the league because, my God, 4 touchdowns, 3 on the ground, 1 in the air. I mean, McCaffrey, we're going to talk about it in the second year. But this guy might be number 1 for MVP right now. That's how good he's been playing so far through 4 weeks. Obviously, the big thing with CMC is just, can he stay healthy? That's been his thing throughout his entire career because we've always known how good he is. I mean, we knew how good he was with Carolina. Obviously, now in the 49ers, a real contending team. We're seeing just how good he can be because obviously he's so good, but obviously they have so many other weapons where it's like you can't just focus on him. You put all your attention on CMC. Oh, well, let's just throw it to Ayuk. Let's give it to George Kittle. If Debo's playing, let's give it to Debo. If Debo's there, let's get Debo. They have so many weapons, so many options, and they have the perfect guy orchestrating it. I mean, Brock Purdy. I had to double check here for a second here. 20 completions, 21 attempts, 95% completion percentage. What are we talking about here?
Hell.
His stats might never blow you away. He's not going to have 5 touchdowns in the game. He just had one. He just had the 1 touchdown, but he's the perfect guy for this team because he doesn't turn the ball over. He does what needs to be done. He's literally. He's an elevated game manager, and that's almost the best compliment I can give you because, this team.
You're not going to see his plays on like ESPN highlights. He's not that type of guy.
But he is the guy that he's going to win you football games. He's not going to turn the ball over like, for example, I'll say Dak. The thing that kills Dak is turnovers in key moments. Brock Purdy's not going to do that. Brock Purdy is going to do what needs to be done. He is an elite game manager, and obviously this Niners team is so good. That's all they need. And obviously, when you have Shanahan, when you have all of these weapons, and you have that defense where even if their offense is not firing on all cylinders, Brock Purdy might have a bad game. CMC might be stuffed up a little bit, just might not be firing. You have that defense to lean on.
That's going to make plays.
That defense is always going to make plays. I mean, that defense will make plays on any offense. That's how good they are. I think, still the best defense in the league. I mean, obviously, we've seen a lot of great defenses, the Cowboys, the Eagles. They're all great. But this Niners team, man, they just have an elite defense. And they are just the most well-rounded team in the league. They have no weaknesses, offense, defense, special teams, coaching, front offense, ownership. They have it all. I mean, they literally have it all. They have good fans. I mean, there is literally no flaws in the Niners organization in general, just much less the field itself. I mean, this team is that good. And I mean, they almost like they're so good they fly under the radar because no one's. I mean, not many people are talking about them. They're 4-0. Only them and the Eagles are undefeated left in the league. Yes, I understand they've only beaten. They beat the Cardinals, the Giants, the
They haven't
Rams,
played a
and the
real true
Steelers. They
contender
haven't
yet,
played
but
that good of a team. But anyone that knows the game and they can just would put their eyes on a TV screen, they can see how good
yeah,
this Niners team is. And obviously, we're going to get that first true test, next week against the Dallas Cowboys. I expect them to pass that test with flying colors. I think this 49ers team is going to be getting talked about a hell of a lot more in the national media after they destroy the Cowboys and improve to 5-0. Because I'm not going to lie, I expect them to win that game comfortably. I'm going to say by at least 15 points. I think it's going to be one of those games, by 2 touchdowns, that type of thing. Because this Cowboys team is good as well. But, we'll talk about them in a little bit here, but, the 49ers are just better. They just are. And obviously, we're talking about Dak in prime time. Don't even get me started on that.
Dak in prime time. And I mean, this team played the Cowboys at Brock Purdy. He's already played this Cowboys defense. He didn't have a problem with them.
Yeah.
He didn't, Micah really didn't have much to do in that game. And this 49ers team is better than when last time they played the Cowboys. And I mean, you could argue that maybe the Cowboys are a little bit better, but they're still not better than the 49ers. I mean, and I know you mentioned it a little bit, but I did want to ask you mentioned it a little bit, but would you say right now that CMC should be the leading goer for MVP right now?
I mean, it's crazy to say it because obviously the way Tua has been playing, so far, the way Josh Allen has been playing, especially after he just torched the Dolphins. But it's hard to not have Christian McCaffrey's name in that conversation. It's hard for me to say he's, number one. I think he's in the mix. I don't think there's a true number one right now. It's a lot of guys that are real.
Early.
It's all real close. I mean, Tua's been playing great. Josh Allen and CMC. For me, I think those are the 3 right now for me that have, elevated themselves up from the pack. I think, those are the 3 guys that I think should be getting talked about in that mix right now. But what CMC is doing, obviously, we all know in this league, it's extremely, extremely difficult for a running back to win MVP. It's a quarterback-driven award.
Like 2012?
It hasn't happened since Adrian Peterson in 2012. It's not easy for that to happen. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be this guy because, it just comes down to his health because he's going to get the production. If he's healthy, this Niners team is so good. They have a great offensive line. We know how good he is. If he's healthy, he's going to get these stats. I mean, he's going to get touchdowns. He's going to get 100 yards a game easy. I mean, this is just what he does, especially when you have these weapons around him. So, if he's healthy, if he plays all the games, he is going to have some incredible stats.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to have the stats to do it, basically. So, for me, and it's always the question with CMC, is he going to be healthy for every single game? Because that's kind of what it comes down to. Because even last season, I know it's a quarterback to a running back, but Jalen Hurts was the MVP frontrunner. He got injured for a couple of games. Obviously, that affects your stats heavily. And then, obviously that derails your entire campaign here. And for a running back, we've seen it, this season, last season, you always see a running back. It's very easy to get hurt, unfortunately. A guy like CMC, he has that injury history as well. We've seen a lot of injuries with running backs, obviously, knock on wood, because you never want to see it happening, especially to CMC the way he's playing right now. But for me, I think he definitely deserves to be in that conversation. And it's hard to say he's not number one right now based on what we just saw against the Cardinals and the way he's playing in general. But for me, it just comes down to his health. And, that's the big question mark. Is he going to stay healthy? I hope he does.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost be a travesty not to be able to see a guy at this level of talent not play in and out every week. But I think I'm very confident to say that if he does play every game, I know that's hard to say for any, but if he does play every game, it's hard for me not to see him in that 1 or 2 in the MVP, just because how much they use him in this, how much a part of the offense he is. I mean, realistically, the 49ers offense is spectacular, but a lot of that, the wrecking ball, is CMC. I mean, Ayuk is all world, but when we're talking about in the red zone, where who do you need to push you over the edge, get that touchdown? You look at CMC. That's the guy that they trust, and that's the guy that's mostly going to be getting those getting the finishing blows here. Getting 3 touchdowns in 1 half here. I mean, for Christ's sake,
4 in the whole game.
4 in the whole game, and obviously we can't speak to his versatility. Just that he could do anything. I mean, it's a guy that look. There's points. I mean, I think wasn't in his debut that he threw for a touchdown, rushed for a touchdown. This is a guy. He does everything. So it just, the question is if he can stay healthy. So hopefully he does, and we can see a real shakeup, because it would be really cool. We haven't seen it since 2012.
Yeah,
I mean, a back
years.
really, been 11 years.
But I think, this is a season where it could happen because obviously, yeah, Tua's been playing great. Yeah, Josh Allen, he did just play great against the Dolphins, but you never know quite about the consistency of either of those two guys. I mean, I love Tua, but sometimes, we've seen it last season. He was in the conversation, then he fell off, obviously a lot due to the injury. Josh Allen, we saw it against the Jets week 1. He's been playing great since then, but you never know what Josh Allen.
Turnover machine.
One week he's Joe Montana, the next week, he's Zach Wilson.
Joe
obviously.
Flacco, yeah.
So Joe Flacco. Zach Wilson might not even be a good comparison after what we saw on Sunday, but
he played decent.
we're going to talk about him in a little bit here. But obviously, that's just the point that I'm trying to say here. It can be inconsistent. Not quite Dak inconsistent, but inconsistent nonetheless.
Yeah,
I always get on Dak. You know what I mean? But
poor Dak.
But obviously, speaking of Dak, let's go ahead and move on to Dak's team, the Dallas Cowboys, bouncing back after their quite embarrassing loss, last week against that Cardinals team we just talked about, and they absolutely destroy the Patriots, 38-3. Obviously, coming out of that game against the Cardinals, we weren't sure what to expect, but they obviously just did what they needed to do, bouncing back from that game. So I'll pass it off to you.
With a big statement.
What was your initial reaction and thoughts to the Cowboys bouncing back and with a statement win against Bill Belichick and the Patriots?
I think this is a very, very good statement to come off of that Cardinals loss. Obviously, a lot of people were shocked. I mean, we're all shocked that the Cardinals were able to win that game, and the Cowboys looked very ineffective. I mean, it was kind of Dak back to being very inconsistent Dak, but to bounce back against the Patriots, against a Bill Belichick-led team, a guy that we will talk about here a little bit, a guy that's always been credited as to be a defensive-minded coach, to be a very tough defense. I mean, you don't associate blowouts and Bill Belichick very much just because his defense are usually very sound. But for the Cowboys to be able to blow that all up and basically have their way and completely dominate this game, I mean, it was surprising because I thought this was going to be a very nip and tuck game. I knew a lot of people that were picking the Patriots to win this game. And for the Cowboys to do that, I mean, it's the statement you want to make. I mean, it's the bounce back that you need, especially on, Bill Belichick. But I mean, overall, it was impressive. I was impressed. Dak Prescott played decent. He didn't no interceptions. I mean, you look at the stat sheet, Dak, no interceptions. Thank God. I mean, it's,
that's what it comes down to, really.
Cowboys fans fall to their knees saying thank you because that's the Achilles heel of this team is Dak's turnovers. How many times is Dak going to turn over the ball, which he didn't? And if Dak doesn't turn over the ball, the Cowboys are going to win a lot of games. Yeah. But that's the big question here. How consistent can he be? And
we say it all the time, bro.
Because they play the 49ers next week. And look, I'm sorry, bud. I don't think you're winning that one. So, but you take that because it's the 49ers. But I mean, you got to beat the teams you got to beat. But those games against those upper echelon real contenders, the 49ers, you get a little leeway with I think you should get somewhat type of leeway because I mean, it's the 49ers. We have them as the best team. But I know there's some people that say, well, the Cowboys should be there too. I mean, they're a team that a lot of people have them in that contender spot. They have them. A lot of people have them in their top fives. So you should be expected to beat those teams.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's where, but that's the thing where you got to look at, you got to have some type of credibility here. Because look, Dak Prescott going against the 49ers defense, look, brother, I've been watching football for a good while. I don't think Dak can hack it with that. I mean, he's going to be middle of the table Dak against that defense just because that's what he does. I mean, we saw him against the Arizona defense, and he couldn't get that going. Anytime he's going to do against the 49ers
when it matters most.
I mean, shit, you're throwing it to triple coverage when it matters most. I mean, I just don't trust him, and he's just too inconsistent because he's going to have this great game, and now it's all perfectly set up for next week. He's going to have an absolute stinker. You're going to probably see 2 turnovers and be an absolute horror show. But for right now, good bounce back game. Got to give him his credit. Got to give him the credit. It's Bill Belichick's biggest loss as a coach. I mean, that was surprising to me. Yeah. That was crazy to me. I was like, for the amount of years he's been around,
coaching longer than I've been alive.
Coaching longer than we've been alive, and especially for it to come against the Cowboys. I mean, you got to look at the Patriots have played all-time great teams, and this comes against the Cowboys.
This Cowboys team,
it's a bit funny, but I think that's more questions to do with that guy on the sideline, which we'll talk a little bit about after you give your thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to sit up here and lie here. Obviously, this was a very impressive win for the Cowboys, bouncing back after that Cardinals result where I slammed them, said it was embarrassing. I got on Dak. Dak did what he needed to do. If Dak can play like this consistently, that's what it always comes down to. This Cowboys team is going to be in the mix to win almost every single game. But do I think Dak is going to be consistent? No, because we all know. Look, if I know one thing about Dak, is that he has his ups and he has his downs. I mean, this is what the tape shows. This is what the stats show. Just look at what we've seen, and that's what we have to go by. We have to go by what we've seen, and what do we know about Dak? He has his good games, has his bad games, but he's Mr. Inconsistent. So I don't think this is going to be this new status quo going forward. I always say it when the Cowboys win. I'm not falling for it again. But going against the Patriots, Bill Belichick led defense. He did what he needed to do. They had to bounce back and win this game because they can't go into the 49ers on back-to-back losses against two teams where they should be beating. You lost to the Cardinals. It happens. You can't go in on back-to-back losses against two teams you should have beat. They should be beating the Patriots. They are better than the Patriots on offense, on defense, special teams. They are just better than the Patriots. They had to win this game. I know they have Bill Belichick, but they had to win this game. But obviously, the manner in which they won it, I think that's the real talking point here. But this is the formula for how the Cowboys are going to win games. This is literally how the Dallas Cowboys have to win games. I mean, they have to lean on their defense. You look at this, they scored 2 touchdowns with their defense. That's how they win football games. Dak did not light them up. I mean, the stats sheet, they show no turnovers, 1 touchdown, 28 for 34, 261. That's good enough to win if your defense is going to do what they did in this game, obviously getting 2 touchdowns, the pick 6, and also the fumble return. So that obviously makes the scoreboard look, much wider than it actually is with just on the offenses. But that's how this Cowboys team is going to win games. Obviously, we know Trevon Diggs is out for the season, but let's not act like this Cowboys team is still, now that all of a sudden they're a bad defense. This is still a very good defense. They have top quality players. This team can do that. They're still capable of doing that. They still have 11 from heaven, and in the Mike and the Marauders, they have all of them.
Mike and the Marauders, they got them there, and they still got Gilmore in the secondary. I mean, they're still good.
They still are a very good defense. This is the formula for how the Cowboys need to win games. Lean on their defense. No turnovers from Dak. Get the 1 touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns, run the ball. This is how the Cowboys will win games. The reality is, do I think that a team like the 49ers is going to, fall into that trap? Is they're going to, are they going to let the Cowboys defense force 2 turnovers and make them into touchdowns? I don't think so. And ultimately, do I think Dak will not have any turnovers and be consistent against the 49ers? No. So that's why I'm not really predicting that to happen next week. But the point is, look, the Cowboys, they're 3-1. They're sitting in a good spot. And obviously, before that loss to the Cardinals, we're talking about the Cowboys. Are they contenders? Can they go to the Super Bowl? So I'm not giving them any leeway against the 49ers. The 49ers are what I consider the best of the best. They're the best team in the league. We're going to talk about it in a little bit here in the power rankings. But spoiler alert, I'm putting the 49ers at number 1. They are my best team in the league. And the Cowboys, a lot of people have them in their top 5s, in and around there. They said, can this be the Cowboys' year to make a Super Bowl? Can they make the NFC Championship game? Well, if they want to do that, they have to show they can beat the best of the best. People consider the Cowboys to be up there. So I can't give them any leeway and say, you know what, it's the 49ers. If they lose, they lose. No, you have to be able to beat those teams. Dak has to show up and say, you know what, I hear the doubters. I hear what you're saying, what I'm saying right now, but I'm going to show up and I'm going to have this type of game. No interceptions, no fumbles. I'm not going to throw in a triple coverage when it matters the most. I'm going to be efficient, and I'm going to lead this team to a win on primetime against the best team in the league. They do that. That's a statement. This team has to make a statement next week. So that's why I sit here and I say it's very good they got this bounce back win. They have a little bit of momentum. They need to make a statement next week because, look, if they lose, they lose. I'm expecting them to lose. Nothing really changes. But if they win, then we're talking about, are the Cowboys back? How about them Cowboys? Everything changes. So the Cowboys have a very, very good chance to make a statement next week against the 49ers, and they need to take it. If this team is legit, if this team is, a team that can actually compete, which I don't think they can, but if they are that team, next week is their chance to show it. So I'm not giving them any leeway. I expect the Cowboys not to win, but they need to go out there and play at that level. They need to show me something next week. That's what I hope to see. Obviously, I'm not expecting to see it, but I hope they prove me wrong.
Yeah. And obviously, another talking point of this game was Bill Belichick's biggest loss in his career. And it's causing people to have a little bit of almost going back to the history here because they start to remember the times of what happened to the old Patriots. And they start to look at, who got more credit, Tom Brady or Bill Belichick. And at the time that was happening, a lot of people would give it 50-50, and even some people will lean a little bit more of Bill Belichick and his defense. But ever since Tom Brady left, we know what the Patriots have looked like. They look nothing like that anything or what they used to be. So it's made people question just how good, how great is Bill Belichick actually? And I just want to have your thoughts on it.
I think it's a little bit tough because if you look at it, a lot of people are saying Brady went on to the Bucs and he won a Super Bowl. Obviously, since Brady left the Patriots, Bill Belichick has not even been close to a Super Bowl, and that's their reasoning here. But I think you have to look at it in a different lens through some proper context here. First of all, Tom Brady, quite simply, he's the greatest quarterback this game has ever seen. He has the 7 rings. I mean, he has it all. He is the greatest quarterback in league history. I mean, this is it. So obviously, you're going from that to Mac Jones. Let's not even put Mac Jones in the same stratosphere. I mean, Mac Jones is a bottom 10, bottom 5 maybe quarterback in this league. I mean, he got benched against the Cowboys. He threw 2 picks. Mac Jones is trash. Mac Jones is not a good quarterback. So you're going from Tom Brady to that. And look, I don't care how good of a coach you are. Whoever you think the GOAT coach is, I still think it's Bill Belichick. You give him Mac Jones and the pieces that the Patriots have, they're not winning the Super Bowl. This Patriots team is not good enough. The Patriots team, the problem with them is that they're almost too good to get a bad enough pick to get, like a Caleb Williams, for example. So they're not quite, they're in that mid, range where it's like they're too good to get a bad pick, but then they're not quite the mid pick. They're not going to get any franchise changing player. So it's a tough situation to be at. But I'm not ready to, say Bill Belichick is a fraud. He's nothing without Tom Brady because I still think he's a great coach. Any team would be lucky to have him. He's still, in my opinion, the greatest coach of all time. But I think we do have to give credit to Tom Brady because a lot of people, including myself, leaned and give Bill Belichick a little bit more credit than maybe he deserved. Because obviously, without a great quarterback, Bill Belichick is not going to get the same results that what he had. He wouldn't have all those rings if he had Mac Jones' whole career. He could be the greatest defensive mind this game has ever seen. But if you have Mac Jones your whole career, you're not winning anything. So obviously, I think they kind of needed each other. Obviously, look, Brady would have won some rings without Bill Belichick, but I don't think he would have won 6 and then ultimately 7 with the Bucs. He wouldn't have won 7. And, Bill Belichick needed Tom Brady because every great coach needs a great quarterback. You can be the best coach in the world, but you're not going to win a Super Bowl without a great quarterback. I mean, what team wins a Super Bowl without a great quarterback? I mean, you're thinking maybe the Ravens when they had Trent Dilfer, maybe when they had Joe Flacco.
The Eagles when they, oh, God. Yeah, the Eagles when they beat Brady.
But the point is, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you're going to need a pretty damn good quarterback. And the Patriots have nothing even close to that. So, I think it's kind of a tough thing because by the time Bill Belichick retires, I think he is on his way out, next couple of seasons. He's not going to get an elite quarterback. So we're never going to truly know. But I think if you give Bill Belichick and this Patriots team a pretty damn good quarterback, let's just say, for example, they got Aaron Rodgers, he didn't get injured. This Patriots team would be competing. They would be right there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'd win a Super Bowl. Because they still have some other holes or whatever. But the point is, Bill Belichick didn't get an elite quarterback to replace Tom Brady. He got Mac Jones. That was never going to be good enough. So I don't think, it's fair to say Bill Belichick is a fraud. I still think he's the GOAT coach. He still has all of that on his resume. But I do think, I have to give Tom Brady some extra credit now. That's where I'll go. I'll give Tom Brady a little bit of extra credit because he proved it. He proved that he can win without Bill Belichick. But I still don't think he would have won all that he won without Bill Belichick. They kind of needed each other, but if one needed the other, Bill Belichick needed Tom Brady more than Tom Brady needed Bill Belichick. That's basically the point.
And I've always agreed with that. I've always said that just because for the based on the fact that Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback ever. But you do have you gotta have some type of sympathy for Bill Belichick because to imagine you compare it to you have the greatest quarterback ever, like you said, and then you go from that to Mac Jones. I mean, you can't do nothing with that. I mean, that's not even like, that's like replacing an NFL quarterback with peewee ball. It's like, you can't do that. And like you said, they're too much. It's like basically with you and having, they're a middle of the pack team. And like you said, they don't get the top pick and it's hard to draft a franchise guy with a mid pick. They can't really do that. So they get stuck at this, that position. And it's a bit unfair and I get it's the main thing because I said it when it happened that Tom Brady went to the Bucs and he won, but the Bucs was a good situation. Tom Brady went to a very good situation. Obviously, a lot of work still had to be done. Tom Brady still had to be Tom Brady to win that ring, but it was a great situation.
Yeah, so Evans, Godwin, he brought Gronk with him. Good defense.
Yeah, and they had a great defense. So I look at it like that, and I kind of compare it to like, okay, let's say let's say you put Bill Belichick on the Chargers right now. How would that team be? Because
Contenders.
coaches really don't have the that same wave of player, like especially a guy like Bill Belichick, where he is the Patriots. I mean, he's Mr. Patriot. That's a guy that they push Tom Brady at the door, but they're not going to push Bill Belichick at the door, because obviously coaches have a bit of a longer lifespan in this league than your average quarterback. So that's why they push Tom Brady out. But if Bill Belichick were to leave the Patriots now and go to the Chargers be contenders. Because that's exactly what the Chargers are lacking. They're lacking a great coach, and I think that's what Bill Belichick would be. So I kind of I look at it that way, because obviously players can go. They can kind of have more choice of what team they want to go to that is in a good situation, especially a guy like Tom Brady. But Bill Belichick doesn't really have that same type of he just wants to up and out. They push him out the door. He can go wherever he wants. Not really like that. He's not that type of guy to basically say, I demand a trade, get me out of here. He's not going to do that.
Yeah.
The only way he's going to get out of the Patriots if they fire him. They're not going to fire him. So, but that's the main thing I look at when I think it's a bit of a. It's wrong to say he's a fraud. There's a couple of players have been saying fraud. Bill Belichick's a fraud, and it's like come on now. I mean, I get that he definitely wasn't the main reason. It was always Tom Brady. I mean, if we're going to break it down to a pie, it's like 80% Tom Brady, but he's the greatest ever. But Bill Belichick is still a great coach. He's a great defensive mind. And if you put him in a good situation with a decent quarterback, he'd be in that mix.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, look, like I said, Bill Belichick needed Tom Brady more than the other way around. But Tom Brady doesn't win 6 rings without a Bill Belichick-led defense. I mean, Tom Brady's and those Patriots defenses, they were always good. They were always solid. And a lot of that comes down to Bill Belichick. So, he is a great defensive mind. And obviously, there is no defense in the world that can make Mac Jones, play anywhere near Tom Brady's level.
Especially when you're doing 2 interceptions. You put your defense in horrible situations. I mean,
bad field position.
As good as this Patriots defense is still a good defense, but every defense is going to look absolutely shambolic when they get put in horrible positions. It's short field, and they're going back on the field consistently, quickly, no breaks in between. That's going to be hard for any team, because these are just people out there,
And then you give up 2 touchdowns, because the fact Mac Jones is fumbling the ball or throwing pick sixes, like he typically can do. So, it's just one of those things. Bill Belichick is in a bad spot, and Tom Brady, like we kind of both agree, he went to a good spot. Obviously, Tom Brady was still the defining factor that because that Bucs team was nowhere near winning a Super Bowl without him. But they had the pieces, and they just said, we need a quarterback. I mean, obviously, when you bring in the greatest of all time, it's gonna fill the gap relatively quickly, and obviously, that's exactly what happened. They went on to win a Super Bowl, and the rest is history. But it's one of those things. This question, I think, it's going to continue to almost gain more publicity going forward, because I don't think the Patriots are getting any better. And I think that's just going to put a lot more of a spotlight on Bill Belichick. And it's, look, he's not getting fired or anything like that. But the reality is this conversation is going to be had more and more and more. You're going to see a lot more players speak out on it and probably say Bill Belichick is a fraud, even though I don't think that's deserved. Because of the fact, this Patriots team, they're not that good. And they play, they play in the Bills. They're playing the Dolphins. They're playing the Chiefs. I mean, this team is not going to make the playoffs.
Good teams. Yeah,
this team is not making the playoffs. I mean, they have some holes they have to fix, and this year, if any year, this is their chance to maybe get an elite quarterback out of the draft.
Just tank, brother.
At this point, Bill Belichick, your final dance. Let's get you Caleb Williams. Why not? I don't want to see it as a Dolphins fan, but if it happens, it happens.
You can't stop it if it happens, but we'll just have to see. Let's see how that goes.
But moving on from the Patriots to another AFC East team. And obviously, that's not even the main spotlight here. Another Taylor Swift game. The Chiefs beating the Jets on Sunday Night Football just narrowly, much closer than everybody expected. Very close. 23-20. I think there's a lot of different talking points you could make about this particular game. Hopefully not Taylor Swift, but I'll go ahead and pass it off to you. What was your reaction to the Chiefs just squeaking by the Jets 23-20?
Look, this game started out like how we all expected. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. It's going to be even. I think you said when we were watching this game, this game's going to be over at halftime.
Yeah,
I mean, this is basically over. But we saw a flash. We saw a bit of that second overall pick magic. We saw a little bit of what a lot of people have been giving him. Hey, I mean, look, they're calling him garbage on the panel now, and they saw. they're almost bullying this kid out of the league. And obviously, everybody knows how about Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, even we've come on here so many times and just absolutely thrashed him, but I'm going to feel bad now. It's actually, I felt bad because of how many people are actually trashing this guy. And he finally has a good game, and people are still trashing him for having a good game because they're like, oh, what do we give a shit about one good game? And you still lost. But look, no one had them winning this game at all. No one had it even being a close game. And look, I know it's one game, but look, I would get this banner hung up in my house. If I was Zach Wilson to get this banner out, you outplayed Patrick Mahomes in a football game.
Prime time.
I'll take that. You outplayed him prime time. In front of Taylor Swift. Look, there was thousands. I mean, look, I saw the ratings on the same. This is one of the most watched games since the Super Bowl. There's a lot of Taylor Swift fans that left this game saying, wow, that Zach Wilson kid is way better than Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's a thing. Because, look, Patrick Mahomes did not play very well. I mean, 2 interceptions, very uncharacteristic from Patrick Mahomes. But obviously, the main play that lost this game for the Jets was the fumble, the botched snap from Zach Wilson that basically gave the ball away, and they were not able to get the ball back.
Yeah.
And
well, maybe the refs a little bit in there, too. But.
Maybe the refs, I mean, but...
That holding that wasn't called, and the Sauce Gardner hold.
The Sauce Gardner hold. But I think it was definitely impressive. I think impressive a bit for both sides because obviously the Chiefs are 3-1. I mean, they're looking great. I think there's some type of things that are still worrying. I mean, the receivers, they're not going like we thought they would because look, this team won a Super Bowl with basically no wide receivers, almost us at receiver. And they're like, Patrick Mahomes always find a way to make it work.
But it may get worse.
And it's getting worse. And maybe it's because the Jets defense is great. I mean, it's hard because the main thing when we watch this game, like his receivers just can't get open. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is scrambling. I mean, he's looking at his backs and he's trying to force feed the ball to Travis Kelce because those are basically the only things he could try. Pacheco is being a big part of this team trying to save Patrick Mahomes right now because his receivers cannot get open. And that could be partial of the Jets defense being as good as they are. We all know how good the Jets defense is, but they're kind of, these are getting a little bit uncomfortable here. I mean, to be this close against the New York Jets because Jets are, I mean, they had a good game, but the Jets aren't very good. I mean, they're not going to really go anywhere like we thought they would before the season because obviously the Aaron Rodgers injury, but you got to be beating the Jets better than this. I mean, it's just something that you hopefully gets better, but as far as the Jets situation, I think they should be kind of happy with this because look, Zach Wilson played well. And if it wasn't for that one mistake, he had one blunder, and I get a lot of people, say that's where the cut off because you can't give a bad play good credit. You can't do that because it's kind of the flip side. A quarterback cannot start the game well and finish badly because great quarterbacks. Usually, we've seen these from obviously generational quarterbacks. I mean, you can name whoever you want to name. They can have a bad game, but somehow by the fourth quarter, by the third and fourth quarter, they turn it around and able to sneak by games. But that was the opposite of Zach Wilson did, and unfortunately, that's how mediocre quarterbacks usually go. I mean, they can start the game out well, but when crunch time happens, they fold, and that's kind of what happened to Zach Wilson. But still. You got to give him credit that he played well. I think he played good enough to beat this team if it wasn't due to that one mistake. I think they would have won. I think they would have won if he didn't mess up the snap. But that's woulda, coulda, shoulda. Who knows? God knows. But I'm going to give Zach Wilson a bit of credit for playing well and playing up to what we all expected, and we all expected garbage. I mean, we all expected him to be bad, but he played well.
Yeah. I mean, look, at halftime, well, not even at halftime. After the first quarter, I was already thinking what I'm going to say. This Jets team is terrible. Zach Wilson, my God, how are they not getting anybody else to, fill that void at quarterback? But then, the Jets, they started to play better. Zach Wilson starts to make some throws, starts to make some plays. And the Chiefs, obviously, and Mahomes making the exact opposite. He's making uncharacteristic interceptions, 3 and outs, not playing that well. And all of a sudden, the Jets, they get closer. They score. Zach Wilson throws another good pass, and I'm like, hold on, what is going on here?
So what's going on here?
And after the game, my main takeaway is that, yes, the Chiefs won, but it was not a pretty win. I don't come away from this game very impressed by what I saw from the Chiefs. Obviously, a win is a win. It's very difficult to win in the league. You take a win any way you can get it. And obviously, you take it if you're a Chiefs fan. But Mahomes, he had a bad game. Let's just be honest here. He is still the best quarterback in the league, but he had a bad game. He had a terrible game. 2 interceptions. You could make the argument he should have had a third interception. He got taken away by that the holding. But whether or not you want to blame the refs or not, everyone's posting the photo of Mahomes shaking the refs' hands or whatever. I do kind of think the Jets were a little bit hard done by some calls in this game. But at the end of the day, the fact of the matter is, Mahomes did not have a great game. Pacheco had a very good game. But my main takeaway is obviously, like we said with the Chiefs before, this receiving core is just god-awful, man. It's just not good. Travis Kelce, he started off the game hot, but I think they just kind of centered it on him, focused on him. He kind of ghosted after that. And once you took away Travis Kelce, then this team really nothing. This is when it started to go from, downhill, because they were really leaning on Pacheco. And once they could kind of corral him, who is he throwing to? I mean, Pacheco had the second most receiving yards. Like, hold on a second here. Pacheco had the second most receiving yards. Like, what is going on here? Like, give Mahomes somebody to throw to. Like, I understand Mahomes, he doesn't need much, but he needs a little bit more than what he's getting right now. If this Chiefs team wants to compete with the Bills, wants to compete with the Dolphins, he's going to need a little bit more. If I'm the Chiefs, October 31st trade deadline's coming up. You've got to make a move. You got to get somebody. It doesn't have to be Devontae Adams. It doesn't have to be an elite receiver. Just get him somebody. Somebody who can create some separation. Somebody that can take some pressure off of Travis Kelce. Somebody that makes the other team's defensive coordinator say, you know what? We got to focus a little bit on this guy. Because right now, they got nobody that's saying we don't got to, like let anybody go one-on-one. I'm not worried about Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I'm not worried about Kadarius Toney. Let's just hone in on Pacheco, Travis Kelce, and Mahomes can be Mahomes. But if he's throwing to these guys who can't create any separation, it's going to be very difficult for any quarterback. So that's kind of what we're seeing. And when the Jets, they have a great defense. I mean, Sauce Gardner, they have CJ Mosley, they have a very, very good defense. It's going to be difficult, and obviously that's what we started to see with this game. But enough about the Chiefs, because I know they lost, but I come away from this game, and I'm super impressed with what I saw from the Jets. And I think it is partially because of the fact I expected nothing. I expected a complete blowout.
Expect nothing, you get a lot,
I literally expected Zach Wilson to have a terrible game. I expected to come on here and say, what is he doing? Like, why are the Jets not getting anybody else in? Because this team is still good enough to potentially make the playoffs if they have a solid quarterback. And I come away from this game, Zach Wilson was making some throws that I didn't think he had in his locker. I didn't think he had that. I mean, I saw Aaron Rodgers on the side at the start of the game. I said, did he bring his boots? Did he bring his cleats? Yeah. He's on the crutches. Like, drop the crutches. We get him in the pocket.
Bring him in there.
He can't be any worse than Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? Like, he's basically the same level of movement as Joe Burrow with the Bengals. So, but after the game, I mean, Zach Wilson was making throws. I mean, I go back to that 2-point conversion play where, momentum was shifting and Zach Wilson puts his body on the line, gets that 2-point conversion right after he made a very good throw. So, I think Zach Wilson earned a little bit of my respect after this game. Obviously the key thing for any quarterback, obviously for Zach Wilson specifically here, is be consistent. He doesn't have to be quite this good, because I was very impressed. I mean, he looked like a very solid starting quarterback in this game. I'm not expecting that week in, week out. But can he be somewhat like this? Can he be solid? Because if he plays like that, or even a little bit worse, this Jets team with their defense is still going to be good enough to keep them in a lot of games. They're going to be very close games. And then it just comes down to, making that key play here and there. And the Jets have difference makers. They have guys like Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall, Allen Lazard, Garrett Wilson. And on the defensive end, don't even get me started. Sauce Gardner, CJ Mosley, Quinnen Williams. They have difference makers. Guys that can make plays in a close game when it matters the most. So, if Zach Wilson can continue to play somewhat like this Jets team is going to be solid. And they're not going to be Super Bowl contenders or anything like that. But they could make a playoff run. They could make the playoffs. I genuinely believe that. Like, if Zach Wilson has this type of game consistently. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But I come away from this game, I didn't even know Zach Wilson could play like this. Like, we haven't seen this since BYU. We haven't seen this since BYU. Yeah. And he came in against the defending Super Bowl champs on primetime, Taylor Swift in the damn building, and he does that. So, it just comes down to being consistent. But I was very, very impressed. And I think I'm going to ask you, after I'd say my point here, but Zach Wilson earned the right to continue to be this Jets starting quarterback for a little bit longer. Obviously, if he falls flat on his face next week and goes back to the Zach Wilson we know and love, then we're going to be having the same conversation. It's time to get him out. Send him packing. Get somebody else in. But after what we saw against the Chiefs, he earned the right for the time being to continue to be the starting quarterback. I think he earned his teammates' respect, the media's respect a little bit. Obviously, after the game, Rodney Harrison says he's garbage or whatever. But I still don't think a lot of people are thinking that. After this game, people are saying, you know what, maybe Zach Wilson's turned a corner. And obviously next week they play the Broncos. What better team to play after that game than the
That's a good little
Broncos?
comeback right
That's
there.
a good chance. The Broncos are not a good football team. We've seen their defense get lit up, obviously, by the Dolphins, who have an explosive offense. But we saw the Bears put some points up on them, obviously. So Zach Wilson could do something here. He could have another good game. And that's how you build some confidence. You get your teammates to start to believe in you. And that's how you ultimately kind of get back on the right track. So Zach Wilson has a very good chance. I hope that he does well next game. I'm rooting for him. I don't like the Jets, but I'm rooting for Zach Wilson to have a solid game because, you just don't want to see somebody get absolutely, shit on completely.
But almost
that's what was
fucking
happening.
league gonna see. He's getting bullied at the league.
When Rodney Harrison in the post game was basically asking the Chiefs player, "Do you think he's garbage?" I think he's garbage. Do you think he's garbage? I mean, I've never
agree
that's kind of
I've never seen that.
That's
ever.
unheard of. Like no one
that's
that never happens to
crazy.
anybody. It's just crazy. So I hope Zach Wilson can keep this up because he was making some throws that's like, damn, like out the back foot, in just tight windows. We're talking about
making some good plays, and I think that's more of the main problem was his confidence, because we have to remember that Zach Wilson is a person. He's a human. He sees everything that's said. It's hard to have confidence in your game when everybody's saying what they're saying. And now that he's able to have some type of foundation, and I know it was tough after the game, you could hear him on the sideline saying it was my fault. It is the reason we lost the game, and his players being there to try and use, give him confidence that you played great. I mean, Patrick Mahomes saying you played a hell of a game, which you did.
LeBron saying it.
I mean, LeBron had to come out and say, you know what, don't listen to nobody. You played great, because he did play good, and it did. Unfortunately, it came down to that one play, but it's very important that you help him get his confidence back, because a player with no confidence isn't going to play very good. I mean, that's just as simple as almost like a human anatomy. You don't have confidence, you're not going to do anything good. But I think this is a good little foundation that he can get some type of confidence, and then he can start playing a little bit decent. I mean, we're not asking him to be, second overall level of, be what you were projected to be in the draft, because that ship has sailed. But can you be at least, better than I know the saying is, are you better than 32 other guys? Can you just be middle of the pack? That's all you're being asked to. Just don't turn the ball over. Yeah. That's it. You don't have to throw for 300. You don't have to throw, for 5 touchdowns or 6 touchdowns or anything like that. Just keep the turnovers low. And this team could be a little frisky wild card team.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. It's crazy how we come away from a Jets loss, which we all expected, and we're saying, all these positive things.
It looks pretty good. Yeah.
But, the Jets, they still have an elite defense, man. They still have, that defense. And when you have that type of defense, with that head coach who I give Saleh a lot of credit, because everyone was saying, get rid of him, put somebody else in. But he stuck with Zach Wilson. And then, if he can continue to play like this or somewhat like this, he gets rewarded. I think, that builds a little bit of, team camaraderie, almost like, you know what? We might have doubted you, but you were right. Let's listen to this guy a little bit more.
No, I mean he backs his guys. I mean that's
what
you want.
That's what you want from any coach.
Just back your guys.
But obviously, we've talked about the key games. We talked about the things we wanted to talk about. There's only one way to kind of end the video here. That's obviously talk about our NFL power rankings after week 4. We've talked about all the key games. So let's go ahead and you know what? I think I did it last week first, so I'm going to give it to you first for this week. Week 4 NFL power rankings. Let's hear it, G.
I got you. Starting out at my number 5, a little bit of a drop from this team. They were my second last week, but number 5, the Dolphins.
Oh, okay.
Number 4, I got the Chiefs. Number 3, I got a newcomer. I didn't even have him in the rankings. The Bills. Number 2, the Eagles. And number 1, I have the San Francisco 49ers. So that's how mine goes.
I was.
Do you want me to go? Are you gonna go off? Or
okay? Yeah. I'll go, and then I'll pass it back to you so you can explain a little bit. It's funny because off camera, before we made this video, I was saying I think ours is going to be a little bit different. So let me go ahead and say mine. At my number 5 spot, I have the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, they slipped a little bit from last week. Number 4, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 3, I have the Buffalo Bills. Number 2, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. And, of course, at number 1, I have the San Francisco 49ers. So we do have the exact same picks. It's funny because I didn't think that was going to be the case, because I think there was a couple teams that could have snuck in at number 5 spot. Maybe the Cowboys, maybe the Dolphins. I was debating a little bit. But, obviously, I went for the Dolphins, and we just happened to have the exact same teams, exact same ranking, exact same order, everything. So that's kind of funny because it's
That's,
not planned. We didn't even know that was going to happen.
no, we don't talk about who we're gonna have in here because my main thing I was jostling with was basically even just my 4 and 5, just because I didn't know. I like the Chiefs, and a lot of it is giving credit to the Chiefs because obviously they're the defending champs. They're they're Super Bowl champs, but compared to all these other guys, it's hard because they just got no weapons. I mean, other than Travis Kelce, the receivers. I don't trust that receiving core against any of this team. Yeah, their defense is an elite, so it's like I don't know, but I think after you can't knock them for they've won games. I mean, they're the same record as the Dolphins, and the Chiefs won a Super Bowl with basically the same group of guys. And when it came down to the Dolphins or the Cowboys, I was just like, I think the Cowboys are just more fraudulent. I just think they're a little bit more of that team that will trick you. Like if they go against the Bills, I think they lose against the Bills the same way. But I think the Dolphins have more of an upside because their offense is so explosive, and their defense is bad. But I think I would trust their defense more than I trust Dak's consistency. So that's where I kind of that's what split it for me. And obviously the Eagles. That was another hard thing. The Bills or the Eagles, but it's hard to put a team above another one that's undefeated right now. I mean, the Eagles are 4-0, even though they haven't looked as dominant as you would like them to be. I mean, them barely squeaking by Washington. I mean, they were losing a lot during a lot part of that game. I thought it was going to be an upset. I was like, fucking hell. How the hell can this happen? And they were able to squeak it out of O team. And look, some people can see that as a positive and a negative because it's like, oh, this team was able to come back from a little bit of adversity, starting out badly, and still come out winning. But to me, I think if you allow yourself you find yourself in that hole against a real contender, which they have not played yet, like one of the other teams on there, like you find yourself in a hole like that against the Bills, the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, it's not going to go good. I don't think it's going to be the same outcome as it was Washington because all these teams are better than Washington. But got to show some respect to the another undefeated team. And then obviously, like you said, spoiler alert, we had the fucking 49ers at one because that team is undefeated and none of those games have really been close. I mean, they've always kind of like
they looked apart. Yeah. I mean, look, I totally agree. I mean, starting at my number 5 with the Dolphins, of course, obviously I had them at number 1 last week, I think. So obviously a big drop off. Obviously, I think that was just a little bit of the Dolphins hype. I mean, I still think they are better than the Cowboys, who I was debating with on who to put at number 5. So I'm not pulling them out of the top 5 completely. I still think they are that good of a team. They're not frauds. They still have an elite offense, very explosive offense. And yes, the defense did not look good. Let's just be honest. It just didn't look good at all. But I still think they're going to get better. And I still think based on the body of work we've seen so far, this Dolphins team is definitely, they have a right to be at number 5. And then number 4, honestly, I was still debating maybe putting them at 4 over the Chiefs because I do think if, the Chiefs and the Dolphins played right now, I think the Dolphins should win that game. I look at the way the Chiefs have been playing. Mahomes not playing as well as we've seen him in the past. Obviously, the weapons not necessarily looking that great right now. I think they need to go out and potentially make a trade to get him another weapon. McKinnon can play good, but at the end of the day, this Chiefs, they have to be powered by their offense. Their defense is never going to be very elite. They're not going to be a top 5 defense. For example, like the 49ers or the Eagles are not going to have a top 5 defense. They have to have that high-powered offense. They have to have Mahomes firing on all cylinders with these weapons. And right now they're not. They're barely squeaking by the Jets. I mean, their defense was getting lit up by Zach Wilson. You know what I mean? Look, I know I just talked about Zach Wilson being, he might have turned a corner, but it's still Zach Wilson. You know what I mean? You can't get lit up by Zach Wilson.
When you're comparing Zach Wilson, obviously, to Tua and his weapons, it's a lot different.
Yeah, it's a lot different.
I do think there's a little bit of a difference with obviously a lot of the problems the Chiefs had was going up against that Jets defense. I mean, that's a bit of a matchup thing. It's a different matchup. If the Dolphins go against the Chiefs, I don't know if the Dolphins defense is going to be bothering. I think
the same way.
We the same way that they were bothering the Chiefs receivers. Even now, for how bad they are, I think the Chiefs receivers will be able to get a little bit open. But that's that's a hypothetical. We wouldn't know. But I think they're very similar. I think they're very close. I think they tend to kind of lean on they have the same thing they lean on. I mean, those are two teams that lean on their offense to win the football games.
The reason why I give the Chiefs the edge is because they are the defending champs, because they have Patrick Mahomes. And when push comes to shove, I lean with Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like, that's the best quarterback in the league. I'm going to trust him, when it matters the most, especially when we get towards the playoff. I'm going to trust him. 2-time Super Bowl champ. He's been there 3 times. They know what they're doing. They know how to win games. So obviously I trust them. But obviously based on what I saw against the Dolphins, I had to put the Bills above both of them. This Bills team, we kind of slept on them after that week 1 loss against the Jets. But this team is very, very good. Obviously, losing Tre'Davious White is going to be a loss in that secondary, but they're gaining Von Miller. That offense seems to be firing on all cylinders right now. Josh Allen seems to be hitting stride. Some are saying he's number 1 in the MVP race right now after that game. So if he can continue to play like that, this Bills team is going to be very, very tough to beat. It just comes down to Josh Allen's consistency, but obviously the power rankings are just based on what we've seen so far. And Josh Allen, after that week 1, failure, has been consistent. He's been very good. So I have no choice but to put them at number 3. They still seem like their championship window is still open. Some said it's closed. Seems to be very, very wide open to me right now.
I think what did we say? Did we say it was close or not?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I think
I feel like we did.
Like yeah.
I feel like
after week 1 we might have said that. But
obviously
it's not. This team is still good. I think I still don't trust them come playoff time because of what we've seen in the past. It's kind of like a Cowboys thing.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it's like something I wouldn't be shocked. But we kind of jumped the gun there on a week 1 loss there, And
then obviously the 2 undefeated, that 1 and 2. I still think the 49ers are better than the Eagles. That's why I kind of have them positioned like that. But this Eagles team looks very, very good. Their offense hasn't been firing on all cylinders quite, like we saw last season. But very, very good performance on offense against the Commanders this week, dropping 34 points. A.J. Brown obviously lighting it up. That just comes down to, I think the Eagles are continuing to get better. They're kind of hitting stride now. And obviously that's scary because they're hitting stride and they're 4-0. So this Eagles team is very, very good. Jalen Hurts is starting to play better. They have an elite offensive line. They have the most unstoppable play in football when it gets to that short yardage. They're getting the first down. They have a very good defense. I mean, like I said, we talked about who let the 49ers get CMC. How did we let Jalen Carter fall to the Eagles in the draft? Who let this happen? How, what happened to the game I love? You know what I mean? Like, why did we let this happen? Because that makes the Eagles defense just that much better. This Eagles team is very, very, very good. And obviously, when they play the 49ers, that's must-see TV. That's going to be a very good game. But based on what I've seen so far through 4 weeks, I have no choice but to put the 49ers at 1. Convincing wins across the board. CMC, I think, obviously is right up there in the mix for the MVP. The most well-rounded team in football in my eyes. No weaknesses. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching. I talked about the fans. I talked about the front office. They have it all. This 49ers team has it all. And I think led by the well-oiled machine, Brock Purdy. I mean, 95% completion percentage, this week. 95%. He's had 1 incompletion. He is an elite game manager, just what this team needs. And they did it without Debo this week. He got injured. His status seems to be day-to-day, according to Coach Shanahan. I'm not even worried about it because this team has so many weapons. If the Debo misses a couple weeks, this team is still going to be good. George Kittle had 9 yards, and this team is still no good. You know what I mean? Like, they have weapons up the ass. They have so many weapons where, sometimes Debo doesn't have a good game, and they still win by 20.
Well, I think eventually I think you just have to start calling him not an elite game manager, just an elite quarterback. I mean, look, you can say he's
I gotta see it against a guy. I gotta see it against Mahomes.
Yeah, like you said, we gotta see it a bit more. But let's not be this guy's undefeated in the regular season. He has not lost a game in the regular season. Then that hasn't happened.
It's
only lost
but
you want to. I get what you want to see, but I think sooner or later you're gonna have to knock off that moniker that he's just he's an elite quarterback, because this is a guy, when someone that doesn't turn the ball over, because we know how easy it can be that even the top echelon quarterbacks that we hold in those high centers can turn the ball over very easy. Yeah, 2 interceptions, and even Josh Allen, a guy that's a turnover machine, is still held as elite. Brock Purdy doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't do that. That's uncharacteristic. I mean, that's something that you would not associate with Brock Purdy, that he turns the ball over. So I think when we start to see him, go against those teams like the Eagles, and then
let's see what they do against the Cowboys.
See him against the Cowboys, which, I mean, we've already seen him beat the Cowboys, but we want to see it again. The first time was so nice, I had to do it twice. We want to see it again. And as far as the Eagles, I think their first legit test to me, their first legit test is going to be against the Dolphins. Yeah. And if they go up and wait, I think, is it going to be in Philly? I think it's in Philly. Either way, if it's at Philly, if it's at Miami, it's going to be a real test for both those teams. It's in Philly. So that's a legit test for both those teams. I mean, Dolphins already had the legit test. It's going to be the second one, and for the Eagles, this to me is going to be the first legit one. Is going to see how can that defense hold up against Miami's offense and vice versa.
Yep.
We're going to see how that works, and then if the Eagles go out there and they basically run a show like the Bills do, then we can start having a little bit of that conversation of 49ers and Eagles are pretty close because look, we talk about how the 49ers are well-rounded. The Eagles are very, very well-rounded too. There's not a lot
of running game,
yeah.
man, crazy right now.
The running game, my God, they got the real Swift Kelsey duo there. They got that duo, and then obviously Jalen Hurts, he can get you a first down. They got the power sneak. This guy can do what it does, and he's a great thrower of the football.
Great, we saw it against the Bucs the last Monday night.
We saw him be able to develop into an elite thrower of the football, and obviously they have those weapons at the receiver. They have AJ Brown, they have Devontae Smith, they have weapons, and they can obviously get to your quarterback. I don't know how they. I haven't the Georgia kid. I don't know how they let that happen. That should never have happened. And I saw that. Look, the Eagles draft a lot of Georgia players, and I guess all the players got together and they were able to vouch for him and say he's the greatest person we know because my God, like when he's on the field, he's hell. This kid is so big and he's so dominant. But
he could be
we're just gonna have to see. He could be a Pro Bowler. I mean, this kid's great.
Yeah. I'm excited for that Eagles 49ers matchup. I will be there no matter what.
I will be there.
Look, not to spoil next week's power rankings and beyond, but I feel like this number 1 and 2 is going to be like that for the next, couple of weeks at least.
Depending on if the Chiefs can make a move and on the Bills' consistency, it's going to be really those two. I would not be surprised if one of those two are in this power rankings until the whole time, until the playoffs.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. But obviously, you're going to have to let us know in the comments what you thought. Do you agree with our power rankings? Obviously, this week we happen to have the exact same list. Are we forgetting a team? Are we not giving the team they respect? Are we disrespecting a team? Let us know in the comments down below. Let us know what you think about, for example, Joe Burrow. What do you think about the Dolphins? What do you think about any of the things we talked about? Let us know in the comments down below. But I think without further ado, we can go ahead and wrap up for this week and go ahead and move on to next week.
Let's get out of here.
So, I'm Zach.
I'm G.
And we'll see you all next time for another video on the channel. Peace.